Welcome, everybody. December 14th, and it's the Crossplane community call today. It's last one for 2023. Can't believe it's end of the year already. And happy to see folks on the call today. We've got a few things to go through today, so we'll get stuck in straight away. Recent releases. So we work well. We recently, just this week, released 1.14.4, which had a few fixes specifically for selecting of environments configs in the multiple mode label selectors. It is a breaking change in terms of how it kind of like worked previously. So folks just need to keep an eye on that if you do want to use this. However, considering that there has been a bug reported for this where there's an out-of-bound exception that gets thrown, we will likely consider cutting a patch release with this. Philippe, you might want to just correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll probably wait a few days to see if there's anything else that pops up before we cut a patch release, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. All right. And then a release of UXP was also done with the latest Crossplane patch release. Looking at Crossplane 1.15, we want to just kind of like bring your attention. Previously, it was indicated that the release would be late Jan 24. We're making a slight modification for it to be early February 24. That's just to allow us a little bit more time to, there's a lot of holidays over this period, and we already pushed out the previous release by 2 weeks. So it just allows us a little bit of time to get some of the work done that we'd like to get into 1.15. And so we'll be releasing early February. Target day is about the 6th of February at the moment. And that will then kind of like bring us back in line with an early start of the month release cadence, which we'll keep going with going forward then. On the roadmap, quickly pop it up here. Currently, a lot of the efforts is continuing on the developer experience improvements. There's a lot of things we want to kind of like work on. Most the kind of like highlight features I would call out is, enhancing the Crossplane beta render for further kind of like validation. We actually made a decision recently not to run it against a live control plane. And the team is prototyping various options of how you can further expand the kind of like information you're passing to render without needing a live control plane. We're doing some further enhancements to the init command, expanding on the trace command that already exists, adding the migration tools that Stefano started to help folks move over from, for instance, to the patch and transform function to the CLI. And then we're also looking to introduce top command to allow you quick view of resources. I have it later on, as I mentioned in the doc as well, but since I'm here, I'll quickly mention it. Piotr came up with a proposal for how to go about it, and folks are welcome to go and give some feedback before further development kind of like goes on there. All right. Going back, composition environments to beta. I'm going to not go into too much detail in this one right now. We're going to talk a little bit about it later with Philippe on the call here. As folks might know, Nick is enjoying a well-deserved break during December and is only back in the new year. And we'll look to continue some of the functionality and polishing that we around moving functions to GA. We'll have to see whether we get through everything. There's quite a bit of work potentially, but hopefully Nick comes back refreshed and we'll pump them out quite quickly. And then we're also looking to promote the management policies to GA. They've been in use for quite a while now. There's a few kind of like known things we want to have a look at with init provider and so on. But we feel comfortable with where the design of the API is to kind of like move forward to GA with them after addressing these issues. And then lastly, we've announced before that Crossplane is aiming to move, or at least to submit the proposal to graduate with the CNCF. And we've got a few activities that we need to undertake to kind of like get the project ready for and comply with all the requirements for that. And so that's kind of like where we're at with for 1.15. As I mentioned, it's no longer late January, but early Feb. And we'll keep folks abreast on the progress we make when we meet up in the new year again. If we look at the release board, current work in progress, we'll kind of like wait for this. The Slack one is one of those things we want to resolve as part of just kind of like getting all of our ducks in a row. And we've got a whole bunch of backlog. I don't think this looks like Jared's updated it recently. We might need to kind of like get this up to date. So I won't go into too much detail with this, but I'll leave it for Jared to cover these in more detail when he's back in the new year for the next community call. All right. I think we've covered most of the issues here. Again, just want to highlight, if there's any specific features or functionality that the community would like to advocate for to be prioritized, the best way to do that is to vote with your thumbs up on issues, raise topics here in this call, or reach out to the maintainers in the Crossplane Slack. Moving along then to provider releases and investments. So recent releases. So provider Argo CD was released recently, actually just after the last community meeting, with a bunch of fixes and new features that you can have a look at. Provider Helm got a new release as well, and now has support specifically for Azure AD Identity, which was requested there. And then provider AWS, also the outbound one had a new release as well. Also, some new resources, as well as fixes that was introduced within the new architecture change that introduced limitations around assume role chain configs. And the AWS config calls were refactored to make less AWS STS calls to remedy a problem that was reported around too many calls to that endpoint. And then just this week, yesterday, a new release for provider GCP went out. This is the first release for the GCP provider that now uses the new object framework, and so finally the performance improvements have landed for provider GCP. Just a note that as we move to the new architecture, we're deprecating previous command line flags that folks could use to set various variables that was used with, for interacting with the Terraform CLI, which are no longer relevant in the new architecture. Looking forward to investments. So we recently had a look at kind of like where we're going with the providers and Upject specifically. Right now, Upject 1.1 is in active development, specifically looking to bring Terraform plugin framework support. And this is a kind of like a prerequisite for for being able to use the newer kind of like Terraform, AWS and GCP providers, because they've started switching to the Terraform plugin framework for resources rather than the SDK. And that requires a whole different way of integrating with them under the new architecture. As part of this effort, also for being able to do major version bumps, we're looking at adding conversion webhook support in Abject to basically allow you to minimize the amount of breaking changes that might kind of like occur from major changes, major version bumps on Terraform. And so where you might have had a field that you might have been called X and it's now Y, you could use a conversion webhook to help you with that. And we'll probably look at introducing multi-version CRDs with it as well. We're still finalizing exactly the technical details of that, but it's on the roadmap to integrate in Abject 1.1. About provider Azure is next up for moving on to the Abject 1.0 architecture. Current estimations will see us release that in early Jan. And that will kind of like complete the initial conversion of Abject's providers, Abound's providers to the new Abject architecture. And then our efforts will move kind of like towards moving on to the latest Terraform versions for AWS and GCP. They've stopped investing in the V4s, and all the new resources and fixes are happening on V5, and so we want to make sure that we move on to those. There's quite a few issues already where folks are asking for resources that are only available or new fields that are only available in V5. So it's high on the priority list to get that done. And current estimation would see us kind of like early February next year to be able to release provider AWS with V5, followed shortly after by mid-March for provider GCP. One of the things we're kind of like actively debating right now is there's two Terraform providers for GCP. There's the normal one and then a beta one. And the beta one contains pretty much exactly everything of the non-beta one, but it just also has the resources and additional fields that Google releases under the beta flag. And we've had quite a bit of requests in the past for people who are looking to use fields or resources that are only available in beta. And so we're considering that the non-beta resources are exactly the same across the two. We will likely at this stage consider just using the beta version of the Terraform GCP provider. And then last but not least, Abject might have moved into Crossplane. You'll remember in the Control Planes Day, Bassam made an announcement of Abound donating Abject and our providers to the Crossplane community. And we didn't want to kind of like put our energies into that while we were rolling out the new architecture. And once we've kind of like made these big changes, we'll do the kind of like necessary things to move these providers into the Crossplane Contrib namespace. All right, that's everything on providers. All right. Next up, community topics and questions. So as usual, some content, go and have a look. Piotr created a great article on using Go templating function. And a new blog post was just published yesterday on composition functions in production by Tobias Brunner. So go and have a look at that. And then the content related to Crossplane's 5th birthday that was celebrated this week with kind of like a live Twitter Spaces conversation. You can go and listen to the recording. There's a blog post, and then also quite a funny video from Victor if you haven't seen it yet. Go and have a look at that. All right. I'm gonna kind of like pause on this one because oh, actually, I'm not going to pause on this one. Let's get into this right now. Um, and I will hand over to Philippe to give us an update on the proposals for composition environments and specifically where we would like the community to provide us with some feedback. Over to you, Philippe.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's been for a while out design proposal for at least trying to outline the issues we have with the current implementation of composition environments and environment configs. And so the proposal in the end is kind of saying let's rely on functions. So actually, we are doubling down on functions, and there is another proposal discussing enhancing and adding to functions the capability to request additional resources so that a part of the use cases for environment configs and the whole part about selection of environment configs could be done by functions themselves with whatever configuration and input configuration for functions that functions author want to provide to its users. So please provide any feedback both on both proposals. The first one, as I said, is mostly focusing on describing the current issues and the current status and kind of let's say deciding whether it's okay to double down on functions and whether discussing whether functions are actually a solution to it to all the issues described. So any feedback will be much appreciated.
Yeah, and since we know, in the environment config object and is quite used by a lot of people already, we want to give sufficient time for folks to get their opinions in there. We do want to make progress on this in the 1.15 release, and since we have pretty much just about 7 weeks left for the release, we would appreciate if folks could get their input in there sooner rather than later. Thanks, Flip. And then, as I alluded to earlier, we've got a proposal for the Crossplane top command that we could also use your input on, and give your suggestions on how it could be made better. And lastly, I just wanted to kind of like bring attention to a pull request that was merged this week that fixes quite a list of bugs, some of them that have been long running. And so this is work that Predrag did to enable server-side apply. We know composition functions already use server-side apply. And this kind of like brings it closer to other areas of the Crossplane ecosystem. We have a larger kind of like epic that speaks to all the work that we want to do with server-side apply, and we're targeting 1.16 to kind of like tidy this up. But with the work that from that PR, it did address quite a few of the items, which we're quite happy with. So if folks want to kind of like have experienced any of these issues in the past and want to give a test build a try, now's your time to have a look at that. All right, we've gotten through the agenda. Maybe I will pause here quickly and see if anybody has any additional topics or questions they would like to raise.
I have a question on the STS token and how many calls was it making to the AWS APIs? My question is like, how do we know? I guess that's Christopher. Maybe I should just talk to him. My question was going to be how did we measure that? Because in the latest version, I saw that there is like you can calculate the latency on the API, but I couldn't figure out how to get the API count.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I know this was Christopher was working with a customer implementing a solution with them, and they picked that up and reported it, and we had a look at it, and there was definitely, we made some changes to optimize things there, and there's plans to further optimize it, but this was an initial fix to stop the bleeding of making all of those calls. But yeah, for further details on that, I suggest you reach out to Christopher.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
That. Cool. All right, going once, twice. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions during this year. Hope you all have if you're taking some time off between now and the new year, enjoy the time off. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, and may you all have a happy new year, and we'll see you all in 2024. Cheers.